This episode of Champions Mojo is sponsored by the Health Coach Institute.
I try to make like the highs I feel and the lows I feel as a human, I try to decrease the range of that. And so I like to just stay a little bit more neutral in everything I do. And pressure is no different. And so I don't want to feel a ton of pressure when there is a lot of it. And I also don't want to feel no pressure at all, because then I'm not even excited to perform.
Welcome to Champions Mojo, a podcast to bring out your inner champion. Your hosts are sisters-in-law, Kelly Pallas and Maria Parker. Kelly is a former Division I head swim coach, Olympic trials qualifier, and holds national and world records in masters swimming. Maria holds world records in endurance cycling and won the world's toughest bike race Across America. Both are certified health and life coaches. Our goal is to inspire you through conversations with champions. And now, your host, Kelly Pallas.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Champions Mojo podcast. And as usual, I am co-hosting with Maria Parker. Hello, Maria.
Hi, Kelly.
Maria, I am super excited today. Our guest is one of the top names in the sport of swimming, nationally and internationally. He is the current Olympic champion and world record holder in the 100 long course backstroke, and a three-time Olympic gold medalist from the 2016 Olympic Games. That's right. Today we're going to have the pleasure of chatting with Ryan Murphy. But before we bring Ryan on, Maria, can you give us just a little bit more background on Ryan?
Ryan was born in Chicago, but attended and graduated from the Bowles School in Jacksonville, Florida in 2013, and then went on to the University of California, Berkeley, swimming for the Cal Golden Bears. He's an 8-time NCAA individual national champion, winning the 100-yard and 200-yard backstrokes in 2014, 2015, 2016, and 2017, earning a four-peat. In those events, that's been done by less than a handful of men in NCAA history. Ryan's also sponsored by Speedo USA, the Goldfish Swim School, and Bridgestone Tires, and is a current member of the LA Current Pro Swim Team. We're looking forward to talking with Ryan today, so without further delay, let's bring him in. Ryan, welcome to Champions Mojo.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me today.
Yes, welcome Ryan. We're really excited. So why don't we just start off? Tell us, we just all finished this big quarantine. How long were you out of the pool, if you were, and are you back in? What are you up to?
Yeah. So I was out for a couple weeks, and I'm living in California, so our normal pool situation is still not up. So I train out at Cal, and those pools are still shut down. So our training schedule is still a little bit sporadic. Some days we're in the pool, some days we're not, and that's okay. I had a couple weeks off after the Olympic decision came down, and now I'm just kind of in the mode of building back up my fitness. And when we're able to get back into our normal routine, I'm really excited to get back into that, to get in really good shape and really start putting the pedal to the metal and prepping for Tokyo 2021.
How was the time off? Was it sad, frustrating, or was it nice?
Yeah. I mean, I think all of the above, really. I think the sadness came from the Olympic decision. I mean, I think from a competitor standpoint, I did the Olympic year right this first time around. I was in a really good spot. I was doing things in practice that I've never done before. So I was really excited about what I was going to do this summer. So I was a little bit bummed that I wasn't able to finish the job this summer. At the same time, I'm going to get to finish the job next summer, and that's something that I'm really looking forward to. It's also nice whenever I have a break to just really take a step back and live a normal lifestyle. I think there's so many things that I sacrifice, that I do to try to make myself the best possible swimmer I could be. And when I take a break, like it's a time to kind of relax and just be a normal 24-year-old guy and hang out with my friends. And so I did enjoy that a lot. And now it's really like the motivation levels are super high, and I'm definitely anxious to get back into my normal routine and just start really, really grinding with training.
What is a normal life look like for you? Not normal as a swimmer, but on the 2 weeks that you had off, like just till you said live a normal life. What did it look like for you during those couple of weeks?
Yeah. So that quote unquote normal life fell during this quarantine, and so my normal life was I was back home in Florida. I was hanging out with my parents a lot. Golf courses were actually still open in Florida kind of the whole way through, as long as you followed social distancing guidelines. So I was playing golf with my dad, and that was super fun, and really just, I mean, a lot of chilling. In a normal time, a normal break, like I would try to go somewhere cool and have a little vacation. That wasn't possible this time around, and so it's just a lot of relaxing, kind of a lot of catching up with old friends, cooking, watching movies. So yeah, it was definitely a different type of quote unquote normal lifestyle, but it was just super nice to have those 2 weeks to really just relax.
I can tell you, as a mother of a 25-year-old who's been, out in the world, getting to spend 2 weeks with him, is amazing. I bet your parents loved it.
I think so. I mean, I don't think it's easy for parents or kids to have their 24-year-old come back into their life, but I'm lucky. I have what I think are two of the best parents in the world, and so it was a really awesome time to just hang out with them. Like they are in Florida, I'm in California, so I don't get to go home very often, and so I really do cherish the times that I'm able to go back.
Ryan, mindset is something that we love to talk about with champions like you, and you alluded that you went through a lot of emotions when the quarantine, the Olympic postponement came down and the cancellation of a lot of, pro meets and swim meets and everything, basically just a big curveball. How do you handle that on a day-to-day basis with this Olympic postponement and a lot of uncertainty out there? What do you do to maintain your mental health?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And so I think the first thing that I tried to do in this situation is just realize that I'm not a public health expert. And so I talk to people that are, or people that are in the medical field. And so luckily my next door neighbor has his PhD in public health. He's one of the top people at the Lawrence lab, which is Berkeley's research lab. And so I was talking to him a lot and just trying to get some clarity on the situation. And in those talks, like I felt like I learned a lot about the situation, and that made me feel a lot more comfortable. And so I think recognizing that as a human being, I have to do my part to help protect the medical community, and then my local community, my family, my friends, and getting excited about that. Like it's easy to view this very, very individually and personally, and just say like, man, like I've had to sacrifice so much because of this pandemic, and I just don't think that is the right mindset here. I think it's like we have a moral obligation to help protect our communities, and so that's what I'm doing. In terms of like the competitive side, like the Olympic dream that I'm still working towards, I mean, it's really just like being able to be flexible with my plan. Like everything is kind of tentative at this point, and so that's okay. Like I'm working on a plan that's best case scenario, worst case scenario, and most likely scenario, and like that makes me feel comfortable. And so I just realized that it's like I have these plans in my head. If some new information comes out, maybe I have to adjust that, and that's okay. I think that's the biggest thing, is just not getting so dialed into what I want to happen, and just kind of like take the news as it comes and adjust on the fly.
Oh, I love that.
That's a great answer. Have you always been this flexible? I mean, I think my understanding is that, as a swimmer who's swum hard your whole life, you've always had the next meet to get to, and there've been, clear goals and people to help you sort of form your guidelines and lanes. But now you're 24, so you're a little bit older. I guess my real question is this easier for you now because you're a little bit more mature than it might have been if it had happened, say, when you were, 20?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a little bit tough to answer. I mean, I think just on a daily basis, like even if I'm talking about a singular practice, I've got to be able to be flexible with what I'm trying to do. It's like if I have a set of 8 100s best average, and then I get to number 3 and I'm feeling absolutely terrible, I've got to kind of adjust the way I'm swimming that, and like that's okay. Like going into the set, I have something I want to do. If that's not possible on that day, great, I'll shift and work on something else. And like I just think like there's little moments like that in every day. And so that's on a very small scale, and obviously this is much larger than a situation like that. But I think the same type of mentality applies in both those situations.
Yeah. And Ryan, I really just want to delve a little deeper into your mindset, because you obviously have had this super winner's mindset from a young age, and you show up at your first Olympics. You win the 100 and 200 backstroke. So you sweep, you're the backstroke king at the Olympics. You lead off the relay, setting a world record. It probably couldn't have gone any more perfect for you than the 2016 Olympics. And yet you were 21 years old. Were you even 21 yet, or were you still 20?
Yeah, I was like, I turned 21 on July 2nd, and then the Olympics were about a month later. So I just turned 21.
Okay, so you're young. This is your first Olympics. You're standing on the Olympic stage, the biggest pressure cooker in the world. Tell us a little bit about just how you got through that, and what carried you, what you were thinking when you're standing behind there and you've never done this before.
Yeah. I mean, I think I did a good job the entire year, kind of just downplaying the moment, and that was my way to deal with the pressure. And then also, like in practice at every meet, I put a lot of pressure on myself to perform. And one of the things I say all the time is the best way to deal with pressure is to deal with pressure. And so like that's what I tried to do throughout the year, is put pressure on myself, probably make something like a college dual meet, make that way more important than it actually is. And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, I got to be ready. I've got to perform really well here. And that was kind of my practice to perform on the Olympic stage. And then also realizing that it's just 100 back and it's just a 200 back. And those are races that I've done hundreds, if not thousands of times. And it's against a field that I had raced before. So like, there's really not too much. There's not much is new in that situation. The only thing that's different is the amount of people that are watching it. And so like, I feel like I recognized that going in, and like when I put all of those thoughts together, like obviously I was nervous, but it was not any sort of like crippling nerves that some people will talk about on the Olympic stage.
That's interesting. So you create pressure for yourself when there's really not as much pressure, and then when the worldly pressure is greater, you tell yourself this isn't that big a deal. So you just kind of, is that right? I mean, kind of from both ends.
Exactly. Yeah. I wish we had video right now, because I view everything kind of on a spectrum. And so like, I mean, everything from like a personality to the amount of pressure you feel, I try to make like the highs I feel and the lows I feel as a human, I try to decrease the range of that. And so I like to just stay a little bit more neutral in everything I do, and pressure is no different. And so I don't want to feel a ton of pressure when there is a lot of it. And I also don't want to feel no pressure at all, because then I'm not even excited to perform, if that makes sense. So I'm always trying to operate kind of in the middle. And I think that's worked out well for me so far.
That's amazing. I've never heard anybody say that. And so did you come up with that on your own? Like I'm going to modulate my big emotions or the big things, and I'm going to bring them down from both ends. Is that something that you were intentional about?
Honestly, not really. And I think it's something that I really learned at a young age from my parents. And this is more on like the personality, emotional side. So, I mean, in my family, it was just pretty, like, we just had a very accepting type of family. You know, it's like people have good days, they have bad days, and that's okay. Like that's life. And so like if someone woke up in the morning, they're in a bad mood, like we would all say like, hey, like, how are you feeling today? They'd be like, okay, I'm in a bad mood. And it's like, okay, that's fine. You know, like take your time to get out this bad mood, and then tomorrow you'll probably be in a better mood. And so it's really just kind of recognizing and accepting your emotions. And when you do that, like, I just think it kind of brings down those emotions. So if I'm in a really bad mood and I just say, hey guys, I'm not in a good mood today. I just kind of want some space. I feel better just after saying that statement. And it's the same thing on the top end. If I'm feeling really, really excited, you know, like I'll say that, and that helps me like come to grips with that emotion as well. And like either try to amplify it with the group, or it's like, hey Ryan, like, you know, we're trying to sit down for dinner and you're all amped up. Like, let's chill out a little bit. So, I mean, it kind of works. It kind of works both ways there.
That's great. That's a really great skill. We obviously in the USA, we have an amazing legacy of backstroke, especially in the men's side. Have any of those people, or who have been some of your role models or people that, you know, have inspired you in the swimming community?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a good one. So I'll just kind of like work right to left here. So if right is now, left is like the 90s. Right now, like Matt Grievers is someone that I always looked up to. I mean, he's always been very, very nice to me, lent me advice when I've wanted it, when I've needed it. So he's someone that's great. Tyler Clary is also someone that's super nice. And like, I think I've connected more with him on like, I mean, more like a passions outside of the pool, you know? So like he's super into racing. So like car racing. And I think that's pretty interesting. Like totally not what I'm interested in, but like I like hearing about that industry. Ryan Lochte is someone that I grew up kind of seeing a lot. I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. He grew up in Daytona. So that's an hour apart. And then he swam at University of Florida. So I'd see him at meets growing up, and he was another guy who, I mean, even as I was a 12-year-old, he would take time to talk to me behind the blocks. And so he's just someone that like he's just very, very good with kids and very willing to lend his time to help people out. Aaron Peirsol was probably the person I looked up to the most. And honestly, like super incredible competitor, absolutely dominant, which is really cool. But what I was drawn to is kind of his vibe behind the blocks. Like this dude would walk out with no cap on, no goggles before an Olympic final, and then just put his cap and goggles on 20 seconds before he jumps in the water, goes, wins a gold medal, gets out, and he's like cool as a cucumber. And I just thought that was really, really awesome and like totally different from me. And so he was a guy that I love. And more recently, I've become super close with Lenny Krayzelberg. Like he's general manager of the LA Current, and that's a big reason why I swim for the LA Current. Like he is an absolute workhorse. Like one of the things I say a lot is I don't feel like I find too many people that I feel like can outwork me. And Lenny Krayzelberg is someone that can outwork me. Like he would be calling me about LA Current stuff at like 9 p.m. on a Saturday night. And he's like, here's what I'm working on. Like, what do you think of this? And I'm like, dude, like it's 9 p.m. on a Saturday night. Like, let's chill a little bit. And he just like, he is just dialed in. And so like, he's a guy that I really, really look up to. And I think out of all of the backstrokers, I would say I'm probably most similar to Lenny in the way that in my personality and the way that I approach life.
And who would you say is the most opposite of you?
Aaron Peirsol. Yeah. Aaron Peirsol is like, he's kind of like a philosopher, honestly. Like he's very deep, and like you ask him a question and the things that he comes up with is just like, I mean, it's so different than me. I feel like I think as like an operator, and then he thinks as like, I mean, it's literally like you're talking to like Socrates or something. Like it's absurd. Like he is so chill, such a thinker, and he's totally opposite from me.
And Aaron still holds the world record in the 200 back. You hold the world record in the 100 back. And even though that was, in the 2009 suit era, it's still, like you said in your statement, Aaron is he's probably the most iconic backstroker for longevity and success. I mean, you may break that with your run, but up to this point, what do you think, in your estimation, made Aaron Peirsol so great?
That's a good question, and it's something that I haven't asked Aaron that, but I've asked Jack Roach, and Jack Roach he was a staple on these USA swimming trips, and so he's a guy who developed a really good relationship with someone like Aaron. He says what made Aaron so great is that Aaron was never satisfied with the race. Like he could have broken the world record and he got out and he's like, yeah, you know what? Like, I feel like I could do a little bit better than that. And Aaron said it when he retired. He was like, like I didn't feel like I could swim a race better than I did in 2009 in that 200 back. And I mean, that's a big reason why that world record still stands. It was just an incredible swim, and he recognized that as well. And he was like, you know what? Like I feel like I reached my potential on that swim. And so then he was like, all right, I'm done. I that's a career. And then I think that's really cool.
Do you have the same feelings, or do you get out of the pool after a really good performance and go, yeah, I put it all out there. I was perfectly prepared. That was a really good swim. I'm not sure I can do better than that.
Yeah, I can't say I have. And like, I feel like I was closer in short course yards than I ever have been long course to feeling like I've had about as close to my potential as possible. So long course and really the 200 back, I feel like I just feel like I have a lot more room to improve in the 200 back. I just think there's a feeling and there's a rhythm that I could hit in practice pretty often, honestly, that I've never hit at a meet. And so that's a little bit frustrating for me that I haven't quite put it all together at a competition yet. The 100 back is a little bit shorter. So I think I'm a little bit closer to my potential in the 100 back. But I mean, even those Olympic performances and the world record performance, like there's some things that I definitely did wrong in those races that I think I could optimize a little bit more.
I have to ask this question because when I told my 25-year-old son that I was going to interview you and we were talking about your career, he said, what is his life like? Does he just swim? And you kind of already answered a part of it, but what are your hobbies and things outside of your swimming life?
Yeah. I think that's a really good question. And I think it's really important to have balance in life. Like I would not be able to swim for probably more than like 6 months if I was just a robot and only thinking about swimming, only thinking about my swimming performance. And so I try to have really good balance. So I mentioned golf earlier. Golf is I think it's a great hobby. And it's cool watching back the Michael Jordan documentary. Like he also, like the way he talked about golf is that was his release. Like when you're playing golf, if you're thinking about something else or someone else, like you're going to hit the ball and it's going to go any direction but straight. So like I love golf because it's very technical. You have to be locked in mentally, and that's a good hobby. And I think outside of that, I'm a huge sports fan. And so like I love watching sports And so this quarantine period has been a little bit tough because there's just been a lack of sports content to watch. But on my daily routine, like I'm watching a lot of sports. And then I think one of the things that I was super conscious about when I turned professional in swimming is I was always someone that was interested in school, that took school really seriously. And I never want to feel like I'm losing my capacity to learn. And so one of the things that I do to keep my mind fresh is I follow the stock market. So, I mean, that's kind of a nerdy hobby, but like, I love it. Like I'm fortunate to be in a position where I've got some really great sponsors. And so like, I like to invest the money that I save. And in the stock market, it's just really cool because it's really like you have long term, you can look at the financials. So you learn a little bit about accounting, financials, and then also like more on the day to day, you're learning about consumer psychology and what's going to make the market go up and down. And so I just think that's also a really fun hobby that I enjoy.
That's so important. I think balance is really something we hear from a lot of you champions. That's awesome. So Ryan, on, looking at your career, you 4-peated championships in the NCAA, you swim at Cal, you swim at, bowls, you won 3 Olympic golds. Have you had any real obstacles in your life?
I'm sure he has, but I'd like to hear about them too.
Yeah, I know. And this is always a tough question because I've had a really great life and I have a great family, and like I haven't had major hardships. And so I hate to be insensitive to people that have had really, really traumatic, tough experiences. At the same time, like, yeah, I've definitely had some very challenging situations. I think every day is just made up of thousands of decisions, and those decisions, like it's kind of become second nature, but you've got to make some pretty tough decisions every single day. And I would say like a specific scenario that was very challenging for me is about 4 weeks out of Olympic trials in 2016. And so like this is 2 months out of the Olympics where I ended up winning 3 golds. So a month out of Olympic trials, I was in the weight room just doing some pretty light, quick squats, and I felt something in my back. And I've never had an injury before at that point. So I was like, oh, that didn't feel good, but I'm going to work through it. And so I swim that day, and it's starting to feel a little bit better. But I wake up the next day, and I could hardly stand up. I could hardly get out of bed. So I'm like, man, like this does not feel good. But I go to practice, trying to swim it off. I couldn't do a flip turn. And so I went to a physical therapist, and that's something I had never done up to that point. So I went to a physical therapist, and kind of got diagnosed, and they were giving me some exercises to do to help it loosen up. But it was still a week before I could do a flip turn. It was 3 weeks before I could do a backstroke start. And so it was a week before Olympic trials that I could finally do a backstroke start. And so that was a really, really challenging situation. Obviously physically it was tough, but more mentally, like I was on fire in training that year. And so I was just bumming. I was bumming out really hard that like potentially my Olympic dream was not going to happen because of this back injury. That was just kind of like, there was nothing I could really do. Like I just did a squat too quick and kind of crunched the back a little bit, and it stunk. Like that was a really tough situation, but like luckily it came all together for me right in time for Olympic trials, and ended up having a really good meet at Olympic trials, and then was even better at the Olympics. So that was definitely an obstacle that I had to deal with.
Did you use what you'd learned in training and going through hard stuff with that, or did you have to use a whole new set of skills to get through that? Because I imagine that would be terrifying.
Yeah, it was terrifying. And I think one of the I mean, one of the things that I believe in is that anytime you have an injury or a sickness, you're in front of professionals. And so I was in front of a really good physical therapist, and I learned a lot about my body. Like I learned what things kind of trigger my back to get super tight like that. And so now like I do prehab, so it's like I'm doing stuff to make sure that I never get so tight that my back locks up like that. And so it was good because I learned a ton about my body. On the mental side, yeah, I mean, I think more than ever, and this is really just like kind of a buzz phrase, is like there was not much that I could control in that situation. Like I couldn't mentally force my back to heal any faster. And so all I could do is follow the directions of the physical therapist, do what they say, and really just stay positive that all of the progress I had made in that season, that's not going to go away because I couldn't do a flip turn for a week. So that was kind of the biggest thing mentally, is just realizing that, like, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, like that week wasn't going to make a huge difference in my Olympic performance.
That's cool.
Yeah, I see such a strong mindset of you. You're a great reframer. And,
that's a great way to put it, Kelly. That's exactly what you do really well. Mm.
Yeah, Maria and I do health coaching and life coaching, and we just finished a bunch of education on coaching people. And that's one of the things that people who succeed do so well, and it's reframing. So maybe you've had a lot more obstacles in your life than other people might call them obstacles, but because you've reframed a lot of things in a positive way, that you're not seeing them as obstacles. But you've got the great natural skill of reframing. And with that in mind, Ryan, what other routines or rituals or things do you do on a regular basis that you think make you successful?
Ooh, that's a good question. I like that question a lot. And sorry, I'm going to pause for a second here, or essentially just buffer this time to kind of form this thought. I do think that success comes from consistency. And so that's really what I try to do on a day-to-day basis. It does not matter whether I'm feeling great or terrible. Like I'm trying to come to the pool and really just approach my day with the same type of attitude, no matter what. And so I think that's really important. And I think that having that kind of mental strength and that mental consistency is definitely a differentiator that I do think contributes a lot to my success.
That's a great answer. Do you have other, just things like, I always, drink a glass of chocolate milk before I go to bed, or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I am kind of a creature of habit. And so almost every night, like I have kind of a similar routine. Like, I mean, and that's like the typical, like, brush your teeth, wash your face, put in my retainer, like that type of stuff. But before that, like I try to foam roll, or I try to stretch really quick before bed. Just so, like, but the last thing I'm doing in the day is helping my body recover. And that's something where at this level of sport, like, recovery is almost the most important thing. And so I really make a big commitment to my recovery, and making sure that my body's, when I finish the day, I'm doing something to help my body recover throughout the night.
That's great. Yeah.
What's exciting to you about the future, obviously, besides the Olympics?
Yeah. So I do want to point out that, and this is a little bit more immediate, but May is Water Safety Month. And so I want to make sure that people are being aware and staying as safe as possible around the water. I think something that's tough in this time is that beaches and lakes and public areas of water are opening back up, and swim schools are still closed. And so I really just want to encourage people to stay safe around the water. If you're a parent or a guardian, keep an eye on your kids around the water. That's really important in this time. And so I don't want to sound bleak, but I want to make sure that everyone can have fun and not potentially be in a bad situation. So that would be kind of something that I want to urge people to do in May, given that it's Water Safety Month, but beyond that, especially as things continue to open up even further.
That's great. Great encouragement.
Awesome. Okay, you ready for the fun sprinter round?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. So these, we're just looking for the first thing that comes to mind and a fast answer.
Take your mark.
Cat or dog?
I'm allergic to both.
Okay. That's a good answer. Red or blue?
Blue.
Milk chocolate or dark chocolate?
Dark chocolate.
Kickboard or no kickboard?
Kickboard.
Mountains or beach?
Beach.
Football or baseball?
Football.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Morning person or night owl?
Morning.
Boxers or briefs?
Boxers. Or boxer briefs.
There you go.
It's kind of a combo.
I always wonder, most people say morning, but I always wonder if that's trained into you is because you got to get up early and swim.
Yeah, I used to hate waking up, but yeah, I have to work out in the morning now, or else I feel absolutely terrible.
Okay, I got 10 more. These are for super short answers. First thing that comes to mind. Favorite color?
That's a good one. Probably green.
Favorite pizza topping?
Sausage.
Favorite vegetable?
Probably broccoli.
Okay, favorite swim complex that you've swum in the U.S.?
I love the Texas pool.
Something on your pre-race playlist?
Ooh, that always changes. I guess What's My Age Again by Blink-182.
Okay. What's your shoe size?
12.
Okay. And any siblings?
Older brother and older sister.
Okay. Favorite Star Wars character?
Ooh, I'm not a big Star Wars guy, honestly. Like, probably Darth Vader. I was Darth Vader for Halloween when I was younger.
Okay. All right. Can you cook?
Yeah, I cook. I cook all the time.
Well, that's great. What's your favorite thing to cook?
I kind of like the Asian influence meals. So like I love like salmon with some like cooking it in sesame oil with soy sauce, and then putting that over some rice, and then sauteing some spinach in the sesame oil and a little bit of soy sauce on that too, and then kind of just like garnish it with some avocado, and that's a really good one.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting hungry.
That sounds great. Okay, so last one. What word comes to mind most when you dive in the water?
Ooh.
On your back, of course. You're diving in on your back.
Yeah, I mean it's not necessarily like one word, but I mean I'm always just kind of like let's go. Like when the gun goes off, like there's not really too much else I can think of. So it's kind of just let's go.
I like it. I think that's a great phrase.
I like that too. I think that was Cody Miller's answer, to tell you the truth.
I think so too.
If I remember correctly, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Well, wonderful. Well, Ryan, it has been such a pleasure. You've exceeded my expectations for chatting with you.
Honestly, you're so mature and thoughtful. You've given us a lot to think about. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I know you've inspired everybody.
Yeah, awesome. Well, yeah, thank you guys for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Takeaways. We've heard from you that your favorite section of our podcast is the takeaways. Thank you so much for that feedback. But before we get to the takeaways today, we wanted to ask you if you would please give us a 5-star review. That way, more people will be able to find our podcast. Also, if you could subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify, you'll never miss a podcast episode if you subscribe. And please share our podcast with your friends. And now, the takeaways.
Well, Maria, what's the saying? Success leaves clues.
I haven't heard that saying, but it's a great saying.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's so clearly evident to me now after talking with Ryan Murphy why he is the Olympic champion and the world record holder and why he's had so much success. The guy is just very, very squared away. And he's so natural at being a champion that his humility, I don't even think he can put words on a lot of things that make him successful because he just naturally does these things.
Yeah. He personifies champion. He's really, I agree. He does them without thinking about them.
It's kind of like somebody, it's like explaining a golf swing or explaining, the underwater pull on freestyle. If you're not a swimmer, you just don't get, hey, early vertical forearm, drop, raise your wrist, raise your elbow, sweep out through the hip. I mean, it's like, it just becomes so second nature to him.
That But I love how, and I'll just start with my takeaway. I love how he was able to verbalize one of the things that I think is really important in a mature human of any stripe, but especially probably important in an athlete under incredible pressure like him, is his ability to recognize and moderate his high and low moods. Like I just, when you said, well, how do you deal with the stress? And he says, well, in important meets, I underemphasize it. And in meets that don't mean anything, I practice by loading the pressure on. I just thought that was such a great, and, I'm sure champions do that. But I don't think anybody has verbalized it as well as he did. Just this ability to just say, look, this is what I'm feeling right now, but I need to moderate that. If it's too high, I need to bring it back down. And he probably is a man who has very strong emotions, and he's learned this over the years that he can control them.
Yeah, that was definitely a great takeaway. And he was so young when he went to the Olympics his first time and knocks it out of the park with 3 golds and a world record. And yet he said, he just felt like it was, he had done it a lot before, and, that he practiced the pressure. That was another thing related to your takeaway of moderating those highs and lows, but also, what was his quote? I think I'm going to use it as a quote of the week. So we'll save that. I love the quote that he said regarding that, and that'll come just after the takeaways. That will be the quote of the week. Yeah. So my first takeaway was his natural ability to reframe things. And I talked about this a little bit, in the show, was that it's a skill of winners. It's a skill that we all need, that instead of seeing it, it's basically instead of seeing the glass half empty, we see the glass is half full. And he seemed to be really good at, even when we started with, how are you feeling about the pandemic and the Olympics being postponed? And he said, well, I'm really focusing on how this is saving lives and how it's helping the medical community. And I thought, wow, what a great way to look at it versus just how it affected him individually. And he reframes things so that they affect him emotionally in a positive way. And I think that is just a huge takeaway that we're coaching now. And one of the skills that we're working with clients on is being great reframers. And Ryan is a reframer.
Yeah, I love that this concept. And I think it's the word reframe comes from psychology, but basically, for anyone who this might be confusing to, it's the ability to look at something from a different angle that makes you feel better or makes you feel good about it. So, in other words, like the glass is half empty, the glass is half full. The glass is half full is a reframe of there's only half a glass. So I mean, if you, and I think this is it's something that you can train yourself to do again and again and again. Like, okay, this is the situation I'm in. For instance, I'm in in line trying to get way to the grocery store. Well, this is a great opportunity for me to meditate and breathe and be grateful for the fact that I have a grocery store. That's a reframe of, oh my God, I got to wait in line to get my groceries. So I think all champions, all successful people have to learn how to do this, or actually really more truthfully, all happy people.
Yes.
can learn how to reframe. So I thought, yeah, he was excellent. Even when we said, this is a great interview, he said, well, you guys are, great interviewers. So, he basically even reframed, that response in a very humble way.
Yeah. So what's your second one, Maria?
Well, it's really, it follows from the first one, which is his ability to moderate, his emotions, his highs and his lows. And he talked about, we asked him, what are your rituals? What do you do? What makes you successful? And he said, it's just being consistent. And what he then went on to illustrate is that when he feels bad, he goes to practice and he does it. And when he feels good, he goes to practice and he does it. Basically, he would seem to be saying, no matter my mood, I'm doing the right thing. And I just really, really like that. Again, I think for someone, and I tend to be emotional, for someone emotional like me, to remind myself that no matter what, you do what you're supposed to do. You get in the, you go to practice, you get in the water, and you just keep doing it. You build those, stacking, as Lewis Pugh used to say, has said to us, you stack every practice, doing the right thing, no matter what you feel. So I loved that.
Yes. Consistency is a theme we're hearing from.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Again and again.
Many of the top coaches, many of the top champions. So consistency is
right. Yeah. How many times do you have to dive in the water to become an Olympic champion? I don't imagine you can count the numbers.
Penny in the jar.
Yeah. What's your second one, Kelly?
My final one was, it's a term that I know a lot of people have heard. I had never heard it. So you said you had heard it, but for me, prehab. So rehab is the term about rehabilitating yourself after you've been injured. So if you do pre-work before you're injured, then that's going to help you from getting injured. So I love when he talked about his injury and how now he foam rolls and stretches and he tries to be very cognizant of staying healthy. And I think that is one that we can all take, whether we're, an Olympic hopeful training a lot, or whether we're just, we're trying to lose the quarantine 10 and we're walking around the house, that if we're more healthy, we recover. And, you and I haven't talked in a week. You've been helping your parents for a week. I took a really bad fall the other day, and if I had not been in good physical condition, I really think I would have ended up in the hospital. I was stupidly wearing Crocs and socks, kind of walking quickly through our living room, and we have hardwood floors, and I wanted to make sure my running shoes were in the car because I was going to drive to the pool, and our pool is open, put on my running shoes, go for a swim, and then wear my Crocs to the pool, which is, normally you don't wear socks with Crocs, but when you do wear socks with Crocs, they're very slippery. So I was trying to run to the car to see if I had my running shoes, and I fly through the living room. Literally, I'm thrown straight ahead on my belly. I like imagine Superman, both arms out, and I land really hard on my chest. And I thought, okay, I have broken ribs, or it knocked the wind out of me. Mark was not home. It hurt so bad that I just started kind of whimpering and crying. But my point is, that was about 8 days ago, and I have been hanging. So we talk about the hanging exercises that help your shoulder, and my shoulder is completely recovered through hanging exercises, and we put this in another episode. But if you have shoulder injuries, so I've been hanging, so all the intercostal muscles around my chest, I believe I pulled every intercostal muscle around my chest. But I'd say I'm about 10 days out of that fall, and I didn't break a rib. I have been in excruciating pain, but the last couple of days, now I have zero pain. And I didn't break anything. I didn't break my hip. I didn't break my elbow. I feel like that prehab is so, you don't know what's around the corner, even pulling your hamstring while you're running, but the more we can take care of our bodies, the better we're going to be. And I just loved Ryan's prehab and preventative exercises. And for some of us, that's just exercises. But I feel like my hanging, like I've been doing flexed arm hanging, saved me from that fall, and that I could have really done some damage, and I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I will definitely agree with that. And, you know, my husband, Jim, who's a radiologist, frequently comments on that. That's, you know, you're always going to step into a hole outside at some day. Yeah. And if you're fit because you walk or hike or run or cycle, or, you know, then that's going to be an uncomfortable experience. But if you're not, that's going to be an experience that can put you in the hospital, you know, and really maybe even lead to more serious conditions. So yeah, fitness is prehab.
I love it. So those were my 2 takeaways. There was a lot there, and
there is.
It was just so fun talking to Ryan. I mean, he's a really obviously super success, but it was just a nice guy, very humble and intelligent and easy to talk with, and I just had a great time.
Yeah, that was great. I loved it. And I love you, Kelly.
I love you too, Maria. Thanks for another great show.
All right. Love you. Bye-bye.
Love you. Bye.
This week's quote of the week comes to us from Ryan Murphy. The best way to deal with pressure is to deal with pressure.
You've been listening to the Champions Mojo podcast with host Kelly Palace and Maria Parker. Champions Mojo is produced by Cabra Media, and a new episode debuts every Tuesday. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. Follow Champions Mojo on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook @Champions Mojo.